welcome today to the Exploring Career Paths AbbVie Visiting Science Fellowship webinar. I appreciate all of you being here today. Slide. I'm Amy Miller, president of the PhRMA Foundation, and part of the reason why I'm especially excited to have you here today is when I finished my postdoctoral training, I did a fellowship as well. It was in health policy, but it changed the course of my career, and I had a lot of fun doing the fellowship year. And so I'm excited to bring you an opportunity just like that. I would like to run this day as follows. First, I'll give you a brief introduction to the PhRMA Foundation. Then I will introduce the AbbVie Fellows, and they'll take you through their presentation. And then towards the end, I will moderate a Q&A. For now, I ask that you stay muted, and if you want to stay on or off camera, that's your choice. When we move to Q&A, I would encourage you to turn your cameras on. You can ask questions by raising your hand if your video is on, and if your video is not on, or you'd prefer, drop your question into the chat, and we will answer those questions both ways. Once AbbVie's done with their presentation, I will remind you of how we're going to run the Q&A. So next slide. The PhRMA Foundation is a nearly 60-year-old organization dedicated to encouraging young scientists through competitive peer-reviewed grants and fellowships given to them at important points in their careers. To date, we've given over $110 million to over 2,700 fellows and researchers. We have about 400 applicants every year, and we award about 40 fellowships annually. We make, you can be a non-US citizen and apply for our grants, but you do have to be matriculating in a United States organization, and we have made grants to about 300 institutions thus far. Slide. Here is a picture of some of our 40 fellows from last year. The PhRMA Foundation fellowships are great ways to demonstrate intellectual independence, but we only can fund 40 out of the 400. And I'm aware that there are all these really great industry pipeline programs like the one you're about to hear about today. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to introduce our awardees and our entire audience to the different types of fellowship programs out there. And so today we have AbbVie. Next slide. I would like to introduce them. They will be speaking together. Hadia Strong, Samuel Sari, Peyton Wade, and Abnab Gad, will be talking about their fellowship programs. So take it on.
Okay, so we're AbbVie, and we're a one-year fellowship, and we focus in U.S. medical affairs, and we're recruiting for 2023-2024. So I'll introduce everyone. So first we have Hadia, and she's an immunogastro, and then we have Tom, he's in immunorheumatology, and then we have Abanu, who's in immunology dermatology, and they're focusing on our products, Skyrizi and Rinvoq. Then we have Gia, who's in the medical payer strategy. So she's on the medical side, also interacting with the health insurance. And then we have me, Peyton, Wade, and Sam, and we're in neuroscience. So we focus on Botox and the GPANs. We have Casey, who's in eye care, and then Alvana, who's in neuroscience, and specifically psychiatric. So AbbVie is a global research-based biopharmaceutical company committed to discovering, developing, and delivering innovative new medicines with distinct and compelling benefits for people. The company focuses on immunology, oncology, neuroscience, eye care, virology, and other specialty areas. The medicines are helping around 57 million people a year in more than 175 countries. And in the world, we approximately have 48,000 employees. And then there's some articles that had us as one of the best places to work for, and that we are very diverse. So our mission statement is, our mission is to empower our medical affairs fellows to realize their full potential while making an important impact on patient lives. We aim to equip our fellows with the necessary skills to become industry professionals by providing them with tools to set clear strategic goals, guide innovation, think critically, and team build. Our focus on professional development will support the ability of our fellows to create and maintain professional and personal relationships, ultimately to prepare them for a fulfilling career in the pharmaceutical industry.
I'm just going to briefly talk about the structure of this fellowship. So similar to what Peyton mentioned, this is a one-year program. There are a lot of pharmaceutical companies that have two-year fellowships, but with ours being 1 year, you definitely want to make the most of that time and be strategic about how you're spending your year. But with that said, we're not affiliated with the university. So you don't have any extra responsibilities outside of the company, meaning 100% of your time is going to be dedicated to your team. We do have some professional development goals within the fellowship, and we have divided those three, we've divided them into 3 areas that you can pick from as a fellow. You could be a part of the professionalism committee, our publicity committee, or the recruitment committee. Myself and Peyton, we are part of the recruitment committee, which is why we're here, hosting this great event for you guys. As far as professionalism, we do have certain events that are put together for us, such as emotional intelligence workshops. And, we have the ability to meet other colleagues across other therapeutic areas and functional areas to really get to know the opportunities that are available to us. This fellowship is located in Chicago, Illinois, except for our psychiatry fellow. She's located in New Jersey. And so that's something to keep in mind if you are to apply for this fellowship, is that you would be expected to relocate to Chicago, Illinois. Now, it is a hybrid role, meaning we have some flexibility. We don't have to come into the office every single day. But we are expected to be there, a couple times out of the week, and then you can work from home as needed. So next slide. Okay, so I know this slide looks like a lot, and if you've never been a part of the pharmaceutical industry, you probably don't know what you're looking at. But this is what we do within U.S. medical affairs. These are the core competencies, and they could essentially be categorized into 4 buckets of what we do, which is a lot of different things on a daily basis. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of the job, is that we're not doing just one same thing every day, right? So we participate in strategic planning, and then we execute that plan. And then we also work with other colleagues across other functional areas to meet those objectives. So that's where you see where it says cross-functional collaboration. And so I'll just provide a couple examples. When it comes to strategic planning, we do need to be mindful of our competitive landscape. And so some of the projects that I've worked on have monitored, I've put together slide decks showing the data of our other potential competitors who are getting ready to submit for approval to the FDA. And that's really important to us because we want to look at what they're doing and then see what we're doing, and maybe their data is really impressive, and just keep an eye on that. We identify gaps within the data that we have so that we can fulfill those gaps by generating data so that providers can feel comfortable prescribing our drug or understanding what patient population best should be on our drug. We do tactical execution. So what this means is, I'll just give you a few examples. We have I'm sorry, someone said, can you share your screen so we can see the slides? Are you guys not seeing the slide?
If you're not
I
seeing
see it.
Yeah, if you're not seeing the slides, could you let us know?
Okay, everyone else says they can see it.
Yeah.
So, okay, as far as tactical execution, when it comes to an advisory board, what that means is we're putting together a meeting similar to this meeting, where we'll meet with doctors who prescribe our drugs, and we just talk to them and get to know some of the challenges they may face with understanding our data, or some data that's missing. Maybe they want some more long-term information about the side effects, the safety, challenges with approval from insurance companies, things like that. And we take those insights and we generate a strategic plan that we can execute, right? And then a large part of our job is creating resources that are used to train our medical science liaisons. And our medical science liaisons is essentially the external face of us. They are actually out there working with the doctors, meeting them and showing them our data. And that's not to be confused with a sales representative, because our medical science liaisons have a medical background, whether it be a PhD, PhRMD, an MD, and then we even have actually a few nurse practitioners we have that ability to have a deep scientific discussion with these doctors to really talk to them about the data. We can go off label and talk about what's not approved by the FDA and still, be able to communicate that information. And just to move down to secondary activities, as a fellow with AbbVie, we are allowed to go on field rides with our medical science liaisons so that we can see what they do and get a feel for, maybe we want to be a medical science liaison after our fellowship. That is a common pathway that people go. And so you may not touch on every single piece of these competencies during your fellowship because it's all going to be dependent on what's happening within your team, but this is essentially what we do on a day-to-day basis. In this slide, MPS stands for Medical Payer Strategy, and that's the role that Gina Armano plays, but she is not with us today because she is feeling sick. But essentially, her role is similar to ours within medical affairs, except she works with payers. Payers meaning insurance companies, people who have stakeholds in how drugs are being widely available to our patients. So she works with market access, and she's really that resource. So it's very similar. You see some of the roles overlap, but she has a different perspective, and she's able to rotate across the different therapeutic areas. Okay, and then I'll let Abinu take it from here.
Cool. So we put together a little list of some of the things you could be doing as a fellow. I just want to point out it's absolutely not comprehensive. One of the nice things about the fellowship is you can tailor it with your preceptor to whatever it is you want to do after your fellowship is done. Some of us want to go into the field, some of us want to stay in headquarters. Idea wants to be from the CEO. It's all very relative to you and your experience, but I'll highlight some of the big things that all of us do. One is content creation, in terms of you can help with a publication, with a poster. Advisory boards is when we gather doctors together and ask them questions like, hey, what are you seeing in these patients that maybe a gap or like something they're experiencing that we can take back to our internal team and see what we can do with it. Do they need more education? Do we need to create more data, give it to the doctors? So that's a huge thing that every fellow here gets involved with. Another big one is medical review. We're a pharmaceutical company, so we do have marketers and business people. We can't just be letting them create any commercial they want and then putting it on TV. You need a scientist to look through it, make sure there's no medical inaccuracy. So medical review is huge. You're going to do a ton of that. Another big one is literature review, and you're going to be making a lot of slides, right? Medical payer strategy, U.S. medical affairs. We all are going to read a ton of science, and we're going to put it together into a slide so that we can educate, whether it be internal peers or outside stakeholders. Next slide, please. So here's what you're all here for. We're expanding the fellowship next year. There's going to be a few more positions. So you can apply to immunology, which will take 3 positions, 1 for each of our therapeutic areas. Medical payer strategy, eye care, neuroscience. Neuroscience, we have both psychiatry and migraine. And next year, we're adding oncology and anti-infectives. So all of them will be taking 1 fellow except for immunology, which will have 3 for next year. Next slide. And here's the application process. In order to apply, you need to have a PharmD or a PhD by June of next year. All candidates have to be authorized to work in the US on a permanent basis. We don't sponsor visas for 1-year fellowships. And to apply, we would like you to send your CV, a letter of intent, a copy of your transcripts, 2 references with their email addresses, and 2 letters of recommendation sent from those email addresses to us. And we also need a ranking of your top 3 therapeutic areas. You don't need to rank 3, right? If you're from an oncology background and you want to do oncology, just tell us you want to do oncology. Not everyone has to send us their top 3. But get all of that together and please email it to our email right here, usmafellowships@abbvie.com. The deadline right now is November 5th, but interviews are rolling. So the sooner you get your application in, the better, because as soon as we get them, we're going to start interviewing you guys. So it's November 5th for PhRMDs, but if you're a PhD, which I hope a lot of you are, because I'm a PhD, it's December 5th. And yeah, I think that's everything I have for you. Ask us lots of questions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We are going to Q&A now. So again, if you would like to ask a question live, just raise your hand. If you'd prefer to type it in the chat, type it in the chat. And thank you for those of you who are turning your cameras on. That's just easier than seeing blank faces.
It looks like we have one question in the chat, Amy. It says, do PhRMD graduates need to also complete the licensure exams, or is it not necessary to get the licensure?
It's not necessary.
Great. So Emily, I don't see that question in the chat. So
I think it was directly to me as the host.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's totally optional. It'd be a personal choice for you. As far as industry, it's not something that you need. You have to graduate though, because you won't be dispensing any medication, and that's mainly what the test is for.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, Amanda, I see your hands up.
What is the common path after the fellowship? Do like a lot of people get offers from AbbVie, or and like also what are the positions that they tend to go to?
I can hit this one. So AbbVie does a really good job, I think, of retaining its fellows. I think last year only one fellow didn't stay with AbbVie, and she got a job with another pharmaceutical company. So we're batting 100 as far as getting a job once we're done with fellowship. But yeah, AbbVie does try to keep you. The most common routes are to stay in-house. In-house roles, usually we call them scientific managers. So you'll come into the office, you do a lot of medical review. A lot of what you do in fellowship sort of continues on. And then you can work your way up. There's obviously the corporate ladder, work your way up to director or CEO if you want. The other side of it is the field teams, and those are our MSLs if you're in medical affairs. And if you're on the payer side, you can become what we call a MOSL. That's less common straight out of fellowship though.
We have a question in the chat. International medical graduates, MDs, can they apply?
That's a great question. I'm not totally sure about the international part of the MD. I can double check on that, because in the past we only do PhDs and PhRMDs. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
If you're getting a PhD, then you can.
I know this is AbbVie's show, but at the end of this, I will show you upcoming webinars and a past webinar. So if you stay tuned, I will show you a program that may be interesting to you. Other questions?
I've got another one directly to me as the host, Amy. For the new oncology fellowship opening, are there specific types of oncology that will be focused on?
So since we don't currently have an oncology fellow, it's a little bit difficult for us to go into detail about our oncology fellow. And so none of us are really trained on the disease state that AbbVie covers within oncology. I know that's, not the best answer, but so we wouldn't know at this time, but I can get back to you though. Like I can reach out to the oncology team and see what that fellow would be learning, what specific tumor types they cover.
I think it's worth saying that this is a relatively new program. I think it's only a few years old, if I remember correctly, and it's growing rapidly. So I think that's impressive. We do have quite a few new questions. What are some recommendations for making a very strong application for a PhRMD applicant?
I can answer this one. So for us, we're looking for someone who has a really strong CV and letter of intent. So, we really want you to paint a good picture of what it is that you've done all throughout pharmacy school. You don't have to have any industry experience. You don't have to have internships, but we do want to see some translatable skills from the things that you have done. So you'll get, recognized for leadership opportunities, any research that you've done, anything that's been published or maybe presented at a conference is really, really impressive. Extracurriculars that you've done even outside of pharmacy school, like maybe you teach a class on the side or you're a tutor, all those things really show that you take initiative. And then as far as your letter of intent, we want to see that you have tried to make sense of what we do and you have an understanding of what it is that we do and what skills you can bring to the table that will contribute to our mission. And then, make sure that your letters of recommendation are strong, that they highly recommend you as a candidate. And then from there, it's all just about interviewing.
Fantastic. So the next question, I think you covered a lot of it, but the question is, what makes a candidate stand apart in the interview process?
And I can kind of touch up on what Hadia said, but more so I would say what kind of sets you apart is being personable. A lot of the day-to-day consists of you working as a team, so you have to be able to deal with a lot of different personalities and also be able to work as a team for that one common goal.
Fantastic.
Just to step on, add to that, I would definitely say show your personality. I don't know, like for me, when I'm around new people, I may not be as outgoing, but you definitely need to show who you are in your interview. And then also try to relate. So I know in my interview with my final preceptor, we talked about interior design half the time because she was decorating her house. So it's try to find something relatable. If you live somewhere, it doesn't just have to be about science. Obviously show that you're educated, but these we're going to be working with you guys for 40 hours a week. So we want to make sure we can get along, if that helps.
It's very helpful. So there's a timeline question. I know you went through the timeline in the slide, but it might be helpful to redo that. And then the question goes on to ask, but for PhDs, do you have
Is it frozen for you guys?
Yeah, I think Amy froze.
I lost her,
Oh,
but
well,
Yeah, if you could go over the timeline, and the rest of the question is for PhDs, do you have to have your thesis defense scheduled and know when you're going to graduate in order to apply?
So as far as the timeline, if you're a PhRMD, all of your application materials should be sent to us by November 5th. And if you're a PhD, you have until December 5th. As far as your defense goes, you need to have your defense completed by June 1st of next year, right? So you don't need to know when you apply when you're defending, right? If you're still generating data or going through the review process, but you need to have your degree in hand by June.
That's helpful. So there's another question about HEOR. I think HEOR was on your list. And so through this fellowship, can I apply to particularly work in that field?
So unfortunately, this is a medical affairs fellowship, so you wouldn't be directly in HEOR. There may be an opportunity for you to connect with someone in HEOR and shadow them a little bit, see what they do on a daily basis. And sometimes we need to work with our HEOR colleagues in order to, meet a certain objective. But I would not say that you would be working in HEOR, you'd be in medical affairs. But there are some HEOR fellowships that you can apply to.
At AbbVie?
Yeah. Not at AbbVie yet, unfortunately not yet, but other companies, I do know they have HEOR fellowships.
It's true that is a growing field, and the companies, all of them combined together are having a hard time filling positions there. So I would suggest you listen to the end, because I do have a webinar coming up on the value assessment side of HEOR. Now, it is for getting our value health outcomes research grants, but it is Peter Newman who's an interesting speaker, so stay tuned.
Got a couple other questions that came in directly to me. If you know, what is the % of applicants who are MD PhDs by training?
Don't know that. We haven't had any fellow yet, actually, that wasn't MD, but if they have a PhD or PharmD, they are eligible to apply for this program, and we will interview you and consider you to the fullest. So at this time, we've never had an MD in the fellowship, but we do work with MDs on our teams. There are some MDs who have been medical science liaisons, and then some directors within our teams who are MDs. So there are opportunities for you guys.
Great. And another question is, are there any options for remote work if one is living out of state, or is it required that you be present in Illinois?
I'll say it is required for you to move to Illinois, just because all of us have had to relocate at this time. And so I won't sugarcoat it, except if you were the psychiatry fellow, then you would be in New Jersey. But I think that it's worth noting that it is a little bit flexible, right? So if, I had an obligation in another state, I would be able to go visit my family or, fly back and forth. That's definitely an option, because you don't have to be in the office every single day, Monday through Friday.
Another question I see, someone asking what the compensation is like for the fellowship, and is there a possibility of a relocation package?
It's good.
Yeah, I think unfortunately we aren't, and maybe my co-fellows aren't comfortable talking about our compensation, but I'll say that AbbVie pays very competitively against all the other fellowships. And so we are compensated really well, enough to live in Chicago downtown. But we don't offer a relocation package. And so that's sort of, the toss up, but you are paid enough to be able to live on your own comfortably.
There's a question in the chat specific to dermatology. So that I'm the derm fellow. She wants to know how often we're in person. It's 3 days for dermatology, but like Hadia keeps saying, it's pretty flexible. There's some people that I've seen once in 4 months. So
Who's that?
Yeah.
You're not talking about your fellow fellows, though, are you?
No. The fellows, we're here a lot. But no, dermatology is 3 days per week.
Yeah, we try to do 3 days, but sometimes it just ends up being 2. And then, for example, last week I traveled for a conference, so I wasn't there at all in the office. So it just really depends.
Yeah, for like neuroscience, we come in a few times. Our actual preceptors are in California, so they'll fly us out there to come see them. But it's really up to you, what day you want to come in, how long you want to come in, how often.
Thank you. Any other questions before I run through some final slides?
I see
I think I
another
have
one.
some more.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry, I just see another one coming to me. Does AbbVie offer a summer internship program instead of a fellowship for those who are still in their PhD programs?
We do have summer internships, but actually I will admit our summer internships are within medical information, which is sort of, it falls under the umbrella of medical affairs, but it's not quite what we do as far as those core competencies that I showed you. So that is an area that we're looking to maybe fulfill one day, get a summer internship within medical affairs. But for now, we have internships in regulatory affairs, clinical development, and medical information. And then, other areas if you're interested in marketing, et cetera.
We have a couple of what I describe as personal questions for you guys, and they're very similar. So we'll go through all 4 of you. What's your favorite part about being at AbbVie? And what would you recommend in looking for a fellowship program? I think they mean even beyond AbbVie. And then a similar question, what, if anything, has surprised you since starting the fellowship? So these sound like personal reflections. Would you like to start, Samuel? You're just first in my line of AbbVie folks.
Yeah, sure. I can set off the answers. So for me, my favorite part would be definitely the people. I feel like the culture definitely includes everyone. Like Medea mentioned earlier, is very diverse, and you find that as a fellow, everyone is open to speaking with you. Whether you're interested in HEOR or in marketing, there's always someone willing to have that conversation to share their daily activities with you. And in terms of surprises, I would say, in terms of surprises, the campus would be one of them for me. Coming into Chicago, I wasn't really aware of the surroundings, the city, but upon coming into the campus, I was very excited to work and basically report every day that I was required to come in.
Very nice. Hadia?
I'll go next. So yeah, a lot of people will say the people. So I'll give a different answer. I think my favorite part about being a fellow at AbbVie is how they take care of us. I've never been a part of a company, you know, don't go looking at my CV to see what other companies I worked at, but I've never been a part of a company that just really valued their employees so much. And they really reward and recognize you for your achievements. So we're definitely given all the tools that we need to succeed in terms of even just having a separate phone for work, separate from your personal phone, so that there's no mixture of business and you know, work and personal. You're given the computer you need, the desk space, all the monitors, and you know, iPods and all kind of stuff, AirPods and stuff that you need. And then I'll just give an example. We were all in San Francisco for a huge immunology meeting within AbbVie, and we got to play some networking games. And then everyone that attended the meeting was able to pick from a gift, because they say, hey, we recognize that you guys are taking time away from your home to come out to San Francisco. And so we just want to reward you with gifts, like pick what you need. And it's little things like that that just really make you feel welcome at a place that you're working at. And so I just feel so blessed to be a part of a company who really recognizes you in that way. I mean, my biggest surprise would probably be, so I had a little bit of industry experience prior, but I'll say my biggest surprise is that I thought I was going to have a more difficult time adjusting from being a full-time student to being an employee. And I honestly think that working is better than being in school. So that's my biggest surprise.
Very nice. Abinu?
Alrighty, so my favorite part of being a fellow is, so I'm a bench scientist, and I think the best part for me is the impact you have as a bench scientist. Like, you do have an impact, but it's like 200 years after you've died, someone finds one of your papers and they're like, oh, this protein can be a drug. But I've been in, you know, medical review scenarios where I'm reviewing a commercial where one of our patients is right in front of me and they're like, yeah, you know, I couldn't date because I had psoriasis on my face. And now I see, like, you know, totally clear skin because of the drugs that we support as a medical affairs unit. So for me, that's my favorite part, being able to do work and then directly see that impact. It's really gratifying. And it's obviously very different from my proteins from a few months ago. The biggest surprise has been sort of how we think about science. If you come from a bench background, you're sort of really into details, thinking about, like, why is this protein or this molecule doing something? Everything here is really patient-centric. So when I read a paper, when I get a piece of data, when I speak with someone in the field, I'm always thinking about the patient first rather than the mechanism. So it's a different way of thinking.
That's fantastic. Peyton?
Okay, so my favorite thing is that at AbbVie, they're using like different technology and your creativity, as well as combining that with scientific information. So like that's my favorite thing, is that you're doing like innovative things. So you're working with innovative like medications, but also innovative technology. And I wasn't really big into technology until I got here, but like any suggestions you have, like anything new, they're incorporating in your projects. So it's like my favorite thing. And then a recommendation when you're looking at fellowship program is, outside of is it your TA, is it medical affairs, is do you enjoy the people in your interview? So you're gonna be working with them a lot. So as much as like they're interviewing you, you also are interviewing them to see, like, do you even want to work with them for a whole year? And then hopefully after that. And then the biggest thing that surprised me was that you get to work with people from all levels of the company. So you get to work with your fellows, but also you'll have meetings with like directors, vice presidents. Like the headquarters like layer of like the corporation isn't that big. So you are getting to meet like big people in the company, and they do listen to you, and they also can like mentor you. So that's nice.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Sorry, Amy. I also wanted to add one more thing to my answer now that I've had some time to think about it. But something cool I would definitely say is the opportunities presented. right now I'm currently working on projects I never imagined that I would ever be able to work on, from working on apps related to our products to even possible podcasts that I'm collaborating and working with Peyton on. So definitely the opportunities. Thank you.
You're going to be famous one day.
Hopefully.
I love it. So we have another in the chat. Looking back, was there something you wish you would have done or done differently in school now that you have this career path in mind?
I wish I was more aware, right? My training was very much like you're going to be a professor, right? You're going to go to academia and you're going to sit there and you're going to enjoy it. But I wish I'd done more research. You know, I came to this fellowship only knowing about the field aspect of medical affairs. Like I wanted to be an MSL. And now it's sort of like the last thing on my list is to be an MSL after seeing all the different things you can do in pharma. So I would say take some time and do some research, see how variable pharma and even just non-bench work is, or non-pharmacy work. I'll let some of the pharmacists talk too.
I think I'm the worst person to ask because I planned my future down to a T. I knew I was going to do medical affairs since first year of pharmacy school. So I did all the internships. I planned memberships in all the clubs and things. But one thing I would do differently, I applied to way too many fellowships. I applied to like 21 or 23 programs. And that's just a horrible idea because you actually need to sit there and interview. First round, second round, third round, final round, presentation, reception. So don't, kill yourself like I did.
I think there's something to be said for you being in the audience, all of you. You're taking the first step, which is curiosity. And like Abanoob, I didn't know about fellowships until I was at the end of my postdoc and didn't really want to be an academic anymore and had no idea what I wanted. So I think you all have taken the next step. Emily, do you mind sharing your screen so that we can go through the rest of the slides? I'm aware we're almost out of time.
Yeah. I just wanted to flag, there's one more question directly to me that I want to throw out there really quick. Somebody was asking if the internships are open to international PhD students, even if they wouldn't need a visa sponsorship in the future. I don't know if you guys know that information, but wanted to flag that.
So I don't know the details about the internship programs that we offer here, just because I didn't actually intern here. I did an internship at Pfizer and Bristol Myers Squibb, but from the applications that I've applied to, a lot of them have said they don't offer sponsorship. So if you require sponsorship, I would say most likely no. But other than that, I think you should be eligible, but don't quote me. I would reach out to someone who has done an internship, which that can be found on LinkedIn.
Good question.
I think Tom did an internship, so you can probably ask him on LinkedIn. He did it in pharmacovigilance. Yeah.
That's an interesting area of pharmacovigilance. So I would like to thank the PhRMA Foundation supporters. These are our supporters. Every dollar we raise annually goes right back out the door to our fellows. Slide, please. We're really dedicated to our audience of awardees and also those who apply or even pay attention to what we're doing. So for those interested in Value HOR, this isn't exactly what you were asking for, but we do have a pretty robust fellowship program for Value HOR as independent researchers in academic institutions. And Peter Newman from Tufts University helped set up our value assessment program, and he was on the committee for about 5 years. He's no longer on the committee, and we're fortunate that he's agreed to do a webinar about how to apply for and successfully win one of these awards, including tips on how to make yourself stand out and what's exciting to the committee members. So you can see the registration link there. You could also find it on our Twitter feed and on LinkedIn. And I encourage you, if you are, still trying to decide which way to take, pay attention to that. Next slide. So for the MDs in the room, we hosted BMS and their fellowship program and internship. For MDs and ODs, they are trying to find MDs who want to become clinical trialists. And so they're 2-year program is, I think, 40% time in residency, which is paid very well. I want to say $120 a year. Don't quote me though, I'm doing that from memory, to be a clinical trialist who's interested in diversity in clinical trials. They are looking for people of color to be clinical trialists, and also those who are dedicated to being clinical trialists for an underserved population. They're pretty flexible in that definition. So that webinar has happened, but the recording is available on our website. So next. We are easy to find. For those of you who didn't get your question answered or have another detailed question, we'll do our best to answer it. So you have our contact information here. You can also find out about all of our grant programs and upcoming events on pharmafoundation.org, also Twitter and LinkedIn. So I want to thank everyone for coming here today. I want to thank Team AbbVie. This was a very enjoyable webinar from my perspective, and thank you, audience, for coming with such interesting and insightful questions. I think this was a fantastic dialogue, and thank you again for joining us today, and I hope you have a great week.